Hello, I'm Steve Kay, Vice Mayor, and I'm here today with Susan Pfluger, who's the Director of Environmental Services for the city. We're out by the airport, by Keeneland, and we're going to talk a little bit about the corridors and what's going to be happening with them as we get ready for the Breeders' Cup and beyond the Breeders' Cup. And then I'm going to talk a little bit with John Saylor, who is one of the city's arborists. But we're going to start with Susan. And welcome. Thank you for taking the time to be out here in the sun and the breeze and all of that. I want to start by just tell us a little bit about what you folks are doing to help the city get ready for the Breeders' Cup, and then how that's going to tie into the long-range plans for our corridors.
Okay. Well, we have a plan to do civic beautification within our main corridors, particularly the ones where we have a lot of traffic related to coming to Keeneland, say from the Horse Park to Keeneland area. So Newtown Pike, Versailles Road, the section of Man of War are real focus areas for us to kick off a civic beautification program for the city. And this is where we would do mass plantings, such as you see behind me.
Okay.
That would be perennials, shrubs, trees, and annuals and grasses. And this would be a long-term investment that the city's putting in. So this is just the beginning. The Breeders' Cup is really a catalyst for us to start this process. It's not the end, it's the beginning.
Okay, so is this a little bit like, we got all excited and prepared for the equestrian games, but there was some legacy kinds of things that we wanted to have the city benefit from long-term as well as short-term. Is that the same idea?
Right, the investment that we're making is a long-term investment, not a short-term investment. We want to build from the success that we have here and do even more of these projects in the future.
Okay, so as people are traveling around, what are they going to see now happening, and when it's all done, what are they going to see?
Okay. Well, for the first project, we're at Man of War between the airport and Versailles Road. So you'll see mass plantings and beautification all the way within this corridor here. We also have another planting area that's almost complete, and that's at the intersection of Main Street and Newtown. And it's almost like a pedestrian garden. We're going to have trails that come off of the sidewalks, and you can walk through those trails and see different types of native plants, and we'll also have a little signage that explains those. And we have another area on Oliver Lewis Way that will be a different look. It's going to be larger plants up on a hillside as you're coming from Main Street. It's coming down to the Versailles corridor. And then we're also proposing a project at the I-75 and Newtown median when you come off the interchange of I-75. And we're still working with the federal government on that because we have to get their approval. That's within the Federal Highway Administration's authority. But we will have that project completed sometime in the near future.
Okay, and you say perennials and shrubs.
Right.
Say a little more about so what's the mix, or how does that work?
Yes, well, it's all kinds of different plants. Trees, we can do some tree plantings in these corridors. We have to be careful because the state and the federal government does have some control. In state corridors, it's the state. Around the interchanges of the interstates, it's the federal government. So we work with them to pick the selection that they will allow within their corridors. For Man of War, this is a city corridor, so we pretty much have free reign here to pick the species that we would like. So we go everything from trees, from larger trees to ornamentals. We have grasses, shrubs, perennial flowering plants such as goldenrod. The Solar Cascade goldenrod is one of the plants that the public will see all the way through all of these different types of plantings. Okay. So we're looking for continuity from project to project, but also each one will have its own special style to it.
Okay, and what we're going to get some more shots of different places, but right here, what we have is some grasses, some shrubs, and what else is going to happen here?
Well, there are also going to be some annuals, so they're not complete yet. We're about 60% complete, but as these fill in, these get much bigger. So this is some boxwoods and some fountain grasses, some liriope, and some roses, and so you'll see the different treatments as we go down. And again, they're not done. Solar Cascade goldenrod, which is our state flower, the goldenrod, will be within the medians as well. So that'll give us a real pop of color. We were looking for a lot of color in the fall, but we also want color and interest throughout the year. And you also notice that our colors we have a lot of gold and a lot of purple. And that's because those are the colors for the Breeders' Cup.
Okay.
So we have that accent, but we can always change that. So you might see us come back in the spring with a different annual mix, give it a blue color, as we're moving into basketball season, for example.
So some of these things are going to fill in and grow and be there for the long term, and
Yes.
some things will be planted annually to kind of give it a little variety of look.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. And so if I can kind of shift a little bit and ask you to talk about what you've been doing in terms of the whole question of maintenance of what happens in the city and how that's changed a little bit.
But there was a slight reorganization within city government structure around vegetation and natural resource management. And so the administration looked at those duties among divisions, and we did an analysis, came up with also some alternatives, and then council and the administration working together said we're going to make some changes. So one of the things that changed, that started in January of this year, was that my division was expanded. We used to be called environmental policy, and now we're called environmental services.
Okay.
We went from just an administrative division to an operational division with equipment, with crew members, with people out working. So the goal of this reorganization was to, number one, consolidate more our urban forestry program. So not just be administrative on our side, but also have a tree crew as well, have the equipment. Another goal was to have our division take over landscape maintenance and turf mowing and cutbacks, for example, of honeysuckle, in areas outside of parks and trails. So now the Division of Parks and Recreation maintains parks and trail areas, and then Environmental Services maintains the corridors that we are responsible for, greenways, facilities, vacant lots that we have around town.
Okay. So from a citizen's perspective, I think what that means is that if I see something that I either like or don't like, I can call the city and say it's out on wherever, and they'll say, oh yes, that's environmental services, or no, that's parks, or that's streets and roads. Is that?
That's correct.
So now there's more accountability and more direct responsibility.
Right, and we want to do things holistically. So instead of sending one crew out to work on a tree and another crew out to work on the landscaping and another crew out to come do the mowing, it's a one-stop shop for those activities in those specific areas.
Okay. So we're going to shift a little bit, but before we do, is there anything else that you would like to tell our viewers about what's going to be happening short-term, medium-term, long-term? Have we covered it?
I think so. We're just really excited about what the future holds for what we can accomplish in just a short period of time. This project that you're looking at was envisioned only in October, November of last year. And to be able to have it funded, designed, and planted and in place before our deadline, I think that's a success, and the proof's in the pudding. As we continue to maintain this area and it gets better and better, and we want to expand those services, we're really looking forward to that opportunity.
Well, terrific. So before we do shift, I just want to say something from my perspective as a member of council, and that is that it's really very helpful to us that you've engaged in this reorganization, and now we know who to talk to about various things, and we already see so many more good things happening. So thank you for all of that.
I would like to add one more thing if I could. I wanted to add that we have private sponsorships who are helping fund these projects.
Right.
We have about $60,000 of sponsorships that have come from private businesses who wanted to join in with the city to make these types of projects happen. So we're very thankful for our sponsors also.
Okay, well great, and yes, we are grateful for them, and thank you again for being here. We're going to take a brief break, and then I'm going to come back with John Saylor, the arborist, and talk a little bit more specifically about his responsibilities. Welcome back. I'm now here with John Saylor, who is one of our city's arborists, and I'm going to start by first saying thank you for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
Happy to have you here. And would you start by just telling our audience a little bit about what it means to be an arborist for the city? What do you do?
Sure. You say arborist, and a lot of people, they don't have a clue what that means. So an arborist is basically someone who cares for trees and manages trees. And so here we're in an urban environment, so we're in urban forestry, and we manage all the trees, not just individual trees. So in our division, we take care of the median trees and the corridors and facilities, and we've kind of expanded our operations recently, as you heard from Susan.
Yeah, so you have more responsibility. Why don't we repeat that? So you're now responsible for what that you weren't responsible for before?
Right. We were strictly administrative, and I was basically the tree cop that would go out and tell you, prune this tree over the street or over the sidewalk. And so now we've expanded to, we're more operational, and it's kind of fold that operation component in with the guys who have the education and the degrees and that are certified arborists who know the trees. Not that the divisions that didn't do a good job before, but basically we're trying to amp up our operation side of things when it comes to tree care. As you know, we don't get the benefits of trees if we don't get them to that maturity stage.
Right.
So
Right.
our goal was to take over the operations and get these trees. We just did it in 2012, an urban tree canopy assessment. And so we know in Lexington we have 25% canopy cover over the urban service area. Well, we want to increase that, but the only way we can increase that is sustain what we have. So by sustaining what we have to take care of what we have. And that means when mowing practices are done, we don't nick the trees with a weed eater or hit them with a mower, but we get a mulch ring around them and take care of the trees that we have. Just since January, we have mulched just in our medians and corridors over 1,500 trees. That was my crew who was able to get that done. And so I know this year it's been people are seeing more little blades of grass next to the trees, but there's a method to the madness where until we get to those trees, we've asked our contractors to just stay away. I'm willing to let it look unsightly versus getting a piece of equipment damaging that tree, because I want to reap that benefit from the tree long term. So our crew is tasked with going back in each corridor area, each median, and putting that mulch ring around so that we can get those trees to be long-lived trees.
Okay, so people as they're driving around town should notice, especially in the median, trees that the mulch really does provide more protection for them, so that we can kind of mow the larger area and not put them in jeopardy.
Right, and the proper mulching technique. A lot of times you'll see contractors do a volcano mulch, which we don't want to see. That actually, mulch should retain moisture. If you get too much, it'll actually shed water, and it doesn't retain that moisture. It becomes hydrophobic, and in water, just as soon as it hits, there's a fungal mat that'll form, and it'll just shed right off.
So people may not know what volcano. I know.
Right.
I understand. I've paid attention to this a little bit because I have some in my own neighborhood that have been improperly done in the past. But anyway, volcano mulch means.
Volcano mulch means too much mulch is applied, and it basically the tree looks like a popsicle stick that's stuck in a big old mound
with a mound
of mulch.
kind of going
Right.
down. Yeah.
So
that's not good.
That's not what you want to see. So my guys they're doing the right practice to get. You don't want more than 2 to 3. Ideally, you want the mulch to break down and have to reapply the next season. You don't want so much mulch.
Okay. Is there anything else that's changed in the way in which the city kind of oversees the planting of trees, the maintenance of trees, protection of trees? Well,
we're getting equipment again to do all the pruning, and we would like to see every corridor, every area that's under our control have a pruning cycle, and basically prune those trees, prune the dead wood out, basically give the trees the care and the maintenance that they need. Again, the goal is to get those trees to maturity, reap the environmental, the economic and social benefits they provide, and that's basically we have some growing pains as we're moving through this first year of this new change with the division, but we're now picking up the equipment and getting the right guys in place to make this happen.
Okay. Well, one of the reasons I was interested in doing this little council comments was that I've had a concern that in the past we've done a better job of putting things in the ground, and then not as good a job of maintenance. And now we're shifting.
Right.
I think it's the right thing to do. I think we need to keep funding it adequately so that when we have an asset like trees, that they grow up.
Right. We view trees as green infrastructure, and we want to maximize the benefits they provide.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned the WEG games. Often what you see is ribbon cuttings, and we'll do a big fancy planting, and then after the event's over, we walk away and we don't maintain them, like you just mentioned. So that's our goal, is we want to maintain what we have. And then even the plants that we're putting in for the Breeders' Cup, the perennials, the annuals will be replaced on an annual basis, but the perennials and the trees and shrubs, we want to sustain that. We want sustainable plants and sustainable landscape.
Okay, so I think that's a good place to end on maintenance, sustainability, improvement of our tree canopy. So thank you, John, for joining us. Thanks again to Susan Pfluger, and thank you all for watching.